I don't even really have an intro for this video because the subject matter is so serious. So we're just gonna get straight into it. This girl a mess, y'all. Hi guys, welcome to my channel if you are new, and welcome back if you've been around here a while. I'm Kendra, this is 𝐒𝐿𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐿 𝐓𝐡𝐞. This is my space for sharing my life with you guys, and I also talk about a variety of other topics as well. So if that stuff sounds good to you, then make sure you are subscribed to my channel. Also, go ahead and like this video while you are at it. And I wanna talk about something that has been on my mind for weeks now. And I'm not really like a pop culture person that reports on all that stuff, but I wanted to talk about this because it hits home for so many women, including myself, and that is DV situations. And I want to talk about the two celebrity cases. Well, I'm not really going to talk about the two celebrity cases, but I feel like they can be case studies for discussion of the entire situation. And then I also want to kind of talk about my experience with it as well. So if you've been around on social media at all, you know that in the recent weeks, there have been two cases of DV situations that have come out with two celebrities, which are two totally entirely different situations, but they echo that same type of experience. So the first celebrity that happened weeks ago is Keke Palmer. And she's like, you know, our little sis or big sis that we kind of grew up with, and we see her, she's a very talented actress, and she got involved with this guy who is the brother of an actor, and they wind up having a baby together, but they were never married. And actually, he has been criticized a lot because he is at a lower socioeconomic status than her, and then also criticized because he actually publicly shamed her for some attire that she wore to an Usher concert a while back. And a lot of people ignored that. And I think that ignoring the public shaming and ignoring the criticalness of discussing her attire were signs, absolutely were signs that something horrible could happen within their relationship. If you've never been in a DV type of situation, or you've never been in a toxic relationship, it's hard for you to see the signs or know the signs. But I have been in a very similar situation where I was criticized on my attire and shamed. Something that I'm pretty sure Keke has worn in front of him before. She is an actress in Hollywood, so she's not the most modest person. And I believe that public shaming and humiliation and embarrassment are part of an abuser's tactics to, how dare you go against me, and I'm going to show you, and you're going to learn your lesson. And it breaks, honestly, a woman down. And I know that she receives a lot of criticism. She has received a lot of criticism, in which I think all DV survivors do, of, well, why didn't you just leave? You know? And especially with her, with having the financial resources and it seems to me that she has a good relationship with her family. I know her mom has spoken out in her defense. So why not just leave? And I think a lot of people can't understand when you are in that situation. And I can only imagine her situation with having a child. You are mentally attached to them. You are physically attached to them, especially when you have a child. You have that link between you. And a lot of times you can't mentally get out of there so easy and so quickly. And I think a lot of times people can't fathom that situation because they have not been through it. It's very easy to say, leave a situation if you are not in it. And it's so very easy to see like red flags and alarming behavior if you're on the outside looking in. And I think people, women, whomever in DV situations should be given a lot more grace than they are in the public eye. And I feel like her situation was crazy because these instances were caught on camera, and some people still couldn't believe that that actually had happened, because before those photos came out, she had petitioned the court for like, sole custody of her child, and people were questioning that. And a lot of times people don't understand, if you are in a situation a lot of times where you want sole custody of your child, it's usually for a very good reason. And I would think that being in a DV situation, saying alarming things about your child, putting the mother of your child in compromising situations would be enough to alarm her to seek that sole custody. So that's kind of what I wanted to touch on her about, and just in general. And then the second instance that is more recent is more also physical situation with Cassie. And I can remember she was so very popular back in the early 2000s. I mean, you just had to be there, right? And I think with her situation, a lot of people have to think about, she met him when she was just a teenager. And he was a very advanced man in status, power, money, all of that in his 30s. And this is why we have to be very careful with age gap relationships, because the dynamic is so skewed. And we have to question ourselves as to why a man so much older would be interested in a woman who is so much younger. And a lot of times it is because, not saying always, she is so inexperienced, and it's hard for her to navigate the world because she lacks experience. And he is so much more advanced, and he has so much more experience, so much more status, power, money, and he can easily sway her opinions or thoughts or mold her into who he wants her to be. And that is honestly very manipulating and taking advantage of someone. And I wholeheartedly believe, my opinion is that what he did in that situation. Because honestly, most relationships are people within our own age range. You know, maybe 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 years younger or older than us. Even though people want you to believe that these large age gap relationships are predominant, and they aren't. Yes, they do happen, and no, they aren't necessarily always predatory, but you have to think to yourself, like, what does one person have to gain from this situation? What does one person have to lose in this situation? And he was solely responsible for her career. When someone has that much power over you in a dynamic in a relationship, it just makes you think, like, why? And how could that possibly work? You know, that's why they say it's probably not a good thing to engage in relationships with someone in the workplace, because there's such a kind of like a power dynamic in a shift there, especially if it's with a subordinate or a superior, right? And also, there is a such thing as financial abuse. People use their money and their economic resources to take advantage of, to manipulate, to have power over someone else. This is the type that a lot of people don't take into consideration. But I noticed that a lot of people are talking about it when they discuss women who want to marry men who make a certain amount of money. They automatically jump to, he is going to financially abuse her if she gets into that situation. Or a lot of times they talk about that with stay-at-home moms. I mean, I was a stay-at-home mom for 2 years. You know, I was with my son home for the first 2 years of his life. And personally, I was never in that situation. But I also had the necessary education, skills, background, work experience, et cetera, to jump back in to the working area, the working world, the working world when I wanted to, and which I did. It was a pretty seamless transition. And a lot of people don't have the opportunity to do that. And it can be devastating, and it can have very devastating consequences on someone. And these are definitely things that people need to know and need to be aware of when they choose to enter into relationships with people, even if they don't think that that person could, you know, be abusive to them in any kind of way. And not only should you be considerate of the fact that someone with a lot of money could put you in harm's way, you also have to think about how someone with less resources than you could also put you in harm's way. If you think about Keke Palmer and her situation, she's in a better financial situation than her baby's father. And he could very well put her in a precarious situation. And even more if, you know, she was married to him, because he could possibly be entitled to the money that she made before they even knew each other, you know? And also you have to think about those situations and where if you do make more money than your partner, they could use you for the resources and money that you have, you know, while they don't contribute anything, not financially, not domestically around the house, not in any kind of way. And I think that speaks to an even larger conversation of gender roles and equity, and how a lot of times in relationships, it is literally never 50-50. Like, people can talk about like, oh, you know, we split the bills, I pay this, you pay that. But in other regards, like, it's very hard to equally distribute responsibilities. And if you guys want me to talk about that or do a video on that, I would love to, because that is something that I have personal firsthand experience with, something that actually occurred within my marriage and honestly made it very difficult. I haven't spoken a lot about specific reasons as to why my marriage fell apart or anything, but I mean, I would love to talk about those gender roles and the distribution of responsibilities within a relationship. I would love to talk about that. Just let me know if you want me to talk about that. But I definitely wanted to talk about this topic. It's very, very important for me because I have been in DV situations before, and it's very difficult to get out of it. And I could only imagine how much more difficult it could be if you have a child with someone, or if someone has significantly more money than you do and they are in a greater position of power than you are. That makes it even 10 times harder to leave. But I know that in my situations, it was so hard for me to leave because I didn't have a good support system. And I didn't have a lot of perceived personal power and control and strength to do that, because I felt so dependent upon someone else. And not only that, I a lot of times was emotionally manipulated and taken advantage of. And within those situations, it's hard to see yourself out, especially when you feel like you've invested so much time and so much care and so much emotion in those situations. I can never, ever stop talking about real life situations. And I use a lot of times, maybe influencers or people on the internet or celebrities or whomever, to kind of spark conversation about these topics, because they are so important to me, whatever they may be, you know? And I know I started out as like a weight loss journey channel and talking about that. And believe me, I will never stop talking about that either. But I also want to take the opportunity to talk about other stuff, because this is like real life, you know? And a lot of times I wish I had like big sis on the internet to kind of like have conversations with me and talk to me about things. So if there is something that you guys want to hear me talk about, I'd love to talk about it. I'm into story times too. I have never done one, but I would love to talk about my experiences that I've been through with whatever, you know? So I want you guys to know that I'm going to keep talking about all kind of stuff, and I'd love to hear your comments below and what you have to say about this topic or any future topics for any other videos. I'd love to hear what you have to say about those. I think that's it, y'all. Make sure you continue to spread kindness in the world. Hey, I do appreciate you watching my videos. I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.